Hey, what is going on, guys? Donovan here. In today's video, I'm going to be making, I guess, kind of my first impressions of the cammed, now dyno tuned Charger RT. So if you guys are new to the channel, this thing's pretty much full bolt-on cam E85. Like I said, I took it out to Fullblown Performance in LA, and they dyno tuned it for me yesterday night. There are a couple issues with it still. Today it didn't want to start up from a cold start, so they need to play with the startup fuel a little bit. They told me to drive it around for like a week or two and just see how it does, but they were able to give me a good amount more power throughout the mid-range especially, and even up top. But I'm gonna drive around and we'll talk about it a little bit more, so let's get into it. So I'm gonna go ahead, this is a warm start, it's not really a cold start, so I think they tuned the warm starts pretty nicely, so it should fire right up. So one of the weird things with E85 is sometimes they're a little bit more hesitant to fire up as opposed to 91 octane. I'm not exactly sure why that's the case. But I've seen it with other cars that have gone the E85 route. One thing I would like them to toy with a little bit is to get a little more chop out of the car. Right now it's idling at about 900 RPM, and on my email tune they had it down to 800, which obviously made it sound a little choppier and stuff. But one of the issues is I think if they lower it, then you have stability issues as well when you're coming back down to an idle. So it's kind of, I think, a trade-off thing they're trying to balance on whether or not I want to get that chop or whether or not I want to be able to drive it without stalling. So I've driven about 100 miles on this tank of E, and as you can see, we're a little over 2/3 of a tank, so it's not terrible. Actually, it was probably more like 80 miles, so if I could get 240 miles out of a tank, I'm not too worried. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take it for a spin really quick. There's a couple of things that I've noticed that I do want to talk about with regards to the tune. Like I said, it's idling a little bit higher, so you don't really get that chop out of it, which kind of stinks because that's kind of one of the key staples of the tune. You know, if that's something we could fix, I would be very happy about that. I have noticed that when coming to like a complete stop, it surges a lot less than it did before, if not at all. And I think that has to do with, you know, the idle RPM being higher. As you can see, it surged a little bit there. The car surges a bit when I do, like, not sudden stops. It's actually really stable at sudden stops right now. It surges a little bit when I come down to a stop, put my foot on the brake, and if I want to inch up a little bit and I release some pressure on the brake but don't take my foot completely off and then press it again, it'll surge. But like, as you saw, see, it's doing it right there. It's actually doing it worse than it was earlier, so at least I can show you guys. That being said, it has shut off on me twice in traffic. They're, you know, going E85 especially at the same time, trying to, I hope I don't get copyright for that, at the same time as trying to tune these issues out isn't exactly easy. And they said that the car was going to take a bit to learn these new parameters and stuff, so that I should probably drive it as much as possible before I leave, which I actually fly out tomorrow. And then in a couple weeks when I fly back here, I'll bring it back to them and they can fix those things. With that being said, like, we'll see if it surges here. Yeah, it's actually doing it way worse than it was earlier today when I was driving, so that's kind of interesting. I think that's a trans tune thing, to be honest with you. When I turn out on the street here, I'll try to give it a little bit of gas though. One thing I do want to point out is my gas mileage, you know, crossing my fingers, I've only been driving it for a day, but it's not crazy different from what it was on 91. And I was talking to Alex about that back at Fullblown Performance, and he thinks it's because the car was running so rich on my Email 91 tune that we were pretty much just dumping unburnt fuel into the exhaust. And I mean, driving it back then, you could definitely, I say back then like it wasn't yesterday. Driving it yesterday on that 91 tune, I mean, you could definitely smell the unburnt fuel. The smell, like, in the cabin, even with the E85, is a lot less severe than it was before, which, you know, I always appreciate because it's kind of headache inducing to smell gasoline. So yeah, as you can see, 17.7, and that's with a lot of traffic driving and a lot of street driving. So see, that time it came down to idle perfectly fine. So it's kind of weird. This car especially has been very temperamental with the cam. So if you're thinking about doing, you know, a cam thing, just keep that in mind. It's you know, it takes a lot of back and forth to find what you need. Like back when I was working with the Email tuner, like we would get a really good tune, and then I'd be like, okay, this tune is doing really well, let's build off of it and adjust it. And he'd send me an adjusted tune, and the adjusted tune would run a little bit, it would run worse. So, you know, there's a lot of back and forth that goes on with this stuff. One thing I do want to kind of tell you guys though is that the remote tuner actually, and I'm not trying to dog the remote tuner here. The remote tuner was a very nice guy to me. I'm leaving him anonymous to this day because I don't want to give anybody bad reviews, bad business. He was very confident that my issues were being caused by something with my install, that my install was wrong. Like nothing else has pointed it to it being a bad install, because a lot of things would be a lot worse. If we got the timing wrong, if, you know, there was a huge vacuum leak somewhere, things would be a lot worse than they are. As you guys have known, there have been tunes that I've had where, you know, the car drives pretty good. And when we got to Fullblown, I was talking to Alex about it. He was like, nothing indicates that there's anything like mechanically wrong with the car. A lot of this stuff is tuning stuff, and believe it or not, he says he's had a lot of customers come into him and say that they've had similar issues, you know, going the remote tune route. And with that being said, I want to say, guys, if you do a bigger mod like this, if you decide to do a blower, if you decide to do, you know, a cam, especially because they are an absolute PETA to tune for, which I've heard. I don't know why I'm speaking in acronym form. Go the dyno tuning route. It's just going to make your life a little bit easier. I gained, and I keep saying I'm not releasing the numbers for the dyno tune yet. I'm doing that because, like I said in my last video, I think, I don't want to compare apples to oranges on different dynos. So I want to go back to the same dyno that I got my pre-cam dyno on, or my pre-cam numbers on, and then we'll compare from there. But one thing I will say is that the car picked up close to 80 or 90 horsepower, or not horsepower, sorry, close to 80 or 90 foot-pounds of torque in the mid-range. That was compared to my cam tune. That wasn't compared to my full bolt-on tune. So compared to my full bolt-on tune, you're talking, you know, a much larger gain. So that being said, you know, the car, it was definitely worth doing a dyno tune over a email tune. To me, the car doesn't sound any louder just yet, but to be fair, I haven't gotten to beat on it too much. The guys at Fullblown were kind of funny. They were telling me that I need to romp on the car a little harder because they were able to kind of tell that I drive this thing like a grandma, and they said that they want it to learn my more aggressive driving patterns because you know, it'll feel better. And that they were basically saying that I need to let the car learn a little bit, keep driving it, see how it does. As you can see there, came down to idle beautifully, like nothing was done to it, obviously except for idling 300 RPMs higher than stock. However, you know, the car's handling pretty well. One thing I do really want to work on is that cold start issue we're having. That kind of freaked me out a little bit. The car didn't want to start at all this morning. But with that being said, you know, car feels great, guys. I know a lot of you guys were looking for this dyno tuning update. Hopefully this was kind of what you guys are looking for. I'm gonna have a completely separate video for pulls and stuff because I have to find a safe time to drive out to Mexico and do it. It is currently Halloween when I'm filming this video, and so as you guys know, it's not really safe to be out and driving on Halloween because, you know, people drink, get behind the wheel. And with that being said, I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys for sticking around. I know my uploads have been pretty sparse. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll probably know why, but I'll spare the other viewers the details. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're gonna line this thing up soon. I want to do a track day. I want to take this thing to a track, put it up against a 392, put it up against a stock RT, and I want to see how she holds the line. So I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Peace out.